Hey everyone. So, after reading chapters 8 and 9 this week about verbal and nonverbal communication, a couple things definitely stood out to me. It made me really think about how everyone communicates in different ways and reflect on that a little more. In chapter 8, kind of talked about how language reflects cultural values, and that kind of stood out to me. For example, some cultures they use indirect language in order to avoid conflict. Um, but others prefer more direct communication. Like, for example, in the US, we prefer a little more direct communication to understand things. And I feel like knowing these differences in the cultures is very important for um, directing like misunderstandings, because with the different cultures and being used to like indirect versus direct communication, it could maybe potentially create some conflicts. Um, but yeah, chapter 9 was also just as interesting, uh, especially talking about silence. So in some cultures, talks about like, or silence shows respect or reflection time, like really thinking about it and being thoughtful. But for others, it might just be seen as like awkward. Um, and so, yeah, not understanding those differences could also lead to some gaps in communication. And then one thing I really kind of wish was addressed more, like talked about a little more, or gave me a little more understanding, is how to actually handle these misunderstandings that come from uh, silence, or like the difference between indirect and direct in these cultures. Like when things are misinterpreted, uh, how do we recognize and how do we like respond to these things, or how are we supposed to know? And I guess it's helpful to learn about this stuff now through like reading about it, so then you do know that there's difference in cultures, and like something like that isn't necessarily anyone's fault. It's just a difference in like how they grew up, or things that they know. And so, yeah, but yeah, that's kind of my question, or what I wanted to learn more is, when the situation does present itself, how do you recover and how do you fix the situation and communicate more effectively? So yeah, I think these chapters are just a good reminder to think about how, some other cultures, they communicate a little differently than us, and some communicate the same. But yeah, overall, it's just good to understand these things and navigate them.